Thank you very much, Ruben. And speaking after Dr. Kagia, it's very humbling. I'm truly humbled. And I was just sleeping there with a sore throat, but I kept telling myself, I must wake up today and come. No matter what happens, I must be here. And when I started coming out of the house, actually I felt the sore throat was disappearing. I think for me, I just want to thank all of you first for accepting the invitation of Dr. Kagia, the invitation of Musundi and others to join us today. And when I looked at the data of 2018, we were speaking about 418,000 girls who had stopped being in school because they were pregnant that year. These are girls that were reporting to the health facilities. But then I looked again into that same data. As we went to 2019, the ages were becoming younger and younger, 10 to 14. And then my work isn't to speak about HIV in the context that you can't speak about sex and the sexual encounter of the child that is first of all ungodly, unwanted, and then it's also unprotected because that's why they were also getting pregnant and they were also getting HIV. And then the first question then I asked myself, so we have a big problem. What shall we then do as a country? And we've all been doing our little effort. There's been so much going on. Every county, Kilifi County, I could see action where even pregnant girls are being asked to come and talk to the other girls so that the girls don't fall prey to men. But then no one was speaking about who is this man. We worked hard. The next year, of course, as a country, there was a bit of shouting. Then when the media came in during COVID, and congratulations to the media, they came out and went boom and told the country, actually, pregnancies among children and adolescents are becoming a major challenge of this country. And we put blame on several things. Of course, sometimes we said it's alcohol and drug abuse. We have said it's all these men. But we were not pointing out a finger at one big elephant in the room, incest. And so when Dr. Kagia, first of all, I think she called me, and she was introducing herself, and then I said, yes, we actually are looking at a layered challenge. And this layered challenge of HIV, pregnancies, and sexual and gender-based violence is so connected to the social fabric of our society. But also, it is the absence of adults. And it's the absence of us realizing how big the problem is. I don't know how many we are here today. If you talk about last year, we had about 219,000 girls pregnant before the age of motherhood. If you put them in one hall, and imagine these are children, because when I went to Homa Bay, I personally actually shed tears holding babies of children of the age of 10. And this girl tells me, the defiler is not someone outside. And they had a local name, they called it Nyoka ya Nyumbani. So they told me the reason why they are unable to challenge the vice is because Nyoka ni ya Nyumbani. And so I left the children and moved aside. It was in the height of COVID because I've never seen more than 200 girls, small girls pregnant at the same time, others breastfeeding, others just come from labor ward. It was overwhelming as a mother. It was disheartening. And when I saw the adults, men and mothers seated in the same compound, telling me how they felt as desperate as those girls that they could not deal with Nyoka ya Nyumbani, I started asking myself, really? All of us adults have all become silent partners. Because that is what we are, silent partners of a vice that you don't want to call out. And so the religious leaders that have been invited here today, If you look at our patterns of leadership in the religious sector, you find that there are more men than women. True or false? And so when you ask some of these girls, who did you speak to? Of course, the first person is the mother. If the father is a defiler, the mother starts first doubting, especially if there are issues of poverty, there are issues of food, there are issues of where will I take the other children. So she's told silent. Sometimes she feels so bad that she starts agitating for help. The next place she goes is a church or the mosque. But who does she meet? Another silent partner, who then gives the instructions to tangalia maneno. Unfortunately, in some cases, if the man wears a nice suit and tights very well and is decent in the church, sometimes the leader just looks at him and says, it's not possible. He cannot be the defiler. I think this girl has been paid by some people to speak about ill of her father. And then the silence continues and the girl continues. And when I started my career, I was working for Family Planning Association of Kenya, those who knew then. And we used to run a show called Youth Variety Show. And I was given the job of somebody called Teen Kajua. Teen Kajua was somebody young people would write to, but they did not know who they were writing to. So the first month, I get a letter from a girl from Thika, Kiandutu. And she describes her situation and how she's gone to high school and her father is forcing her to have sex with her so that he can pay school fees. So of course that time it used to be post office. So she sends a letter to Teen Kajua, I read it, then I respond, I give her information where she can go to get help. Then she writes again. She wrote a total of 6 letters. So I said, maybe there's something, there were no cell phones. I said, maybe there's something I can do. So I talked to my boss and I said, supposing we write to her and say we want to meet her, and we give her the next term, like we give ourselves the post office, the young people here may not understand what that means. You count. We knew how long the letter would take to reach. And so I counted that she needs to get the letter before she leaves school so that and then I told her the dress I'll be wearing and how we were going to do. And then I told my boss, we are going to go to Thika and wait for this girl. That's lots of work. And this is somebody just coming from the crowd within a radio station, a national radio station at KBC. And thanks to KBC, they are still here today. And so we went and waited. And she turned up. So she turned up. And of course, the rest was, we took her for counseling, we talked to her, and then we went to her place because her last letter was like, now at this rate, I'm going to get pregnant. She talked about STIs and how she was burning. And at that point, we actually checked her, she had gonorrhea. And so we went and got the father. The father had live gonorrhea. But the first thing when the father was being arrested, the mother said, this girl is a liar. But then after we did all that, and we had rescued the girl, and we had her, then the next question, where do we take her? Where do we take the girl after that? The mother already is saying, I don't want her. She's the one who has made her father get arrested. So you find this society problem is so big as you go to step 1, step 2, step 3. And the next thing you realize that if you could do prevention, then it is better than coming to sort out the situation where it was. So for that girl, she's just one girl. We were able to help her. But to these other many girls we are talking about, the 219,000, that we speak about them as adolescent pregnancies. The question is, who is responsible? The question is, can a 10-year-old decide she wants to get pregnant? What consent? Because we are speaking about defilement, but we give them a new terminology and say they are just pregnancies. I want to speak about the boy child. The boy child has also suffered. The only difference is he does not come with a pregnancy. And he suffers in huge humiliation and silence. I think as you look at the data, every time you see reported number of cases of girls, we also have boys. I think you have 95,600 girls. And I work a lot with groups that are affected by HIV, like the men who have sex with men, the sex workers, and all those kind of groups, because as we deal with the disease. And as one time, I was in a meeting in a hall like this, and I said, these people look like children. Can you tell me your experiences? And I discovered you're actually dealing with childhood trauma of boys who have been sodomized. And they told me stories like, tulikuwa tunaishi Kibera, uncle yangu akatoka ushago, alikuwa anatafuta kazi, and then siku moja akanishika kwa nguvu. Then I'm like, you are actually defiled. That does not define you. It is a defilement. It's childhood trauma. We are calling it sometimes names, but this is childhood trauma. But who is this uncle? Who is this man? And I began to think that we have also neglected the boy child because he can't speak. The only time the boy child mothers know is when they start having, you start looking at their panties, you see they have poo in their panties. And it's silence. You are all silent in it. We are silent. The parents go treat their child alone. And because they feel shame inside them, they don't know what to tell the pastor. They don't know what to tell anybody. And we all enshrouded in silence. And that's a silence that this meeting is about. The silence about incest. And Dr. told you, and I've been speaking to women and girls who are older mothers, who cannot have sex because their first sexual partner was a father, a brother, a cousin. They hate sex. When they get married, they are breaking their own families because sex for them was an unpleasant experience. So you're there counseling in the religious circles, but the root cause was at home. And I want to say, this story looks like it's a story about people in low socioeconomic status. No, even in the best homes. I was speaking to a young girl, and she was telling me, we are 3 girls. And so I asked her, how come you people are not seeing your father? Your father is very sick. Why are you not attending to your father? She said, that's a molester. I was in a best home. I was in a beautiful home. So I said, did your mother know about it? And she said, no, we couldn't tell mom. And how did he used to do it? He would call us in the bathroom and ask us to take to him a towel, or you'd ask for something when he's in the bathroom and he'd hold you. I said, really? Because I knew that family. I said, he did that. And so now he's an elderly guy. But then I understood the challenges I was seeing with these girls as adults. The inability to hold even relationships together. Their anger untreated. And the silence of humiliation they have had to deal with for many, many years. And that is why we are saying it is a development issue. That is why we are asking you to join a movement that you actually call it a spade. Even if it's your own brother. We have a CEC, Mbai from Moranga County, who was a former CEC of health. He took his own relative and imprisoned him for defiling a girl. And that could cost him a lot of political mileage, but he did it. And he said, if this is the price I must pay, let me pay it. Because at least even any of my relatives knows that if they ever do something like this, we will not be on the same bed. I will have paid my dues with my political affiliation. I think we should clap for that man. And when I went to Moranga and I found it's true, the number of people Dr. Bai had actually dealt at an individual level, he was basically following the case to conclusion. Because one of the things you're going to learn about defilement and incest is that when you go to report, of course, you come back and like the stranger, this person is home with you. Can you imagine? You're reporting somebody, then you go back in the evening to sit with them. How is that even possible? Then you decide that the only place to run to is a church. The church doesn't have a safe house. We don't have safe houses anywhere. The pastor can't take all of us to home. The most person cannot take all these girls to his home. So we are caught up in a situation where we are not able to break up this vice. But there is strength in numbers. All we need is to speak out. Speaking out means we are not tolerating. We are saying our society as men, because Oh, men here, I like what Nyaga keep asking here, Nyaga. Most men in this room are good men, right or wrong? Wanaume mko hapa si nyinyi watu wazuri? So how can we, good people, fail to deal with a few elements that are even destroying the good name of men? Men are fathers, they are brothers, isn't it? They are uncles, they love the women in their lives. But then because of the few elements that have the vice, we all join together and now the women stand here and blame the men. No, we are not blaming the men. We should blame the vice and the few men or boys that we are not also working very hard to give them education. So my ask is an action. That one, we need to sensitize men differently. We need to speak to men as men who care deeply for the women in their lives. And therefore, they should also care deeply for the other ones, their neighbors. We also need to think about how do we help men to use their power, to use their positions positively. So if it is a chief, sub-chief, they are not colluding. They are not sitting down in a kangaroo court and asking the uncle to bring cows here and another one and say the matter is over. And then this woman, like one of them was telling me, she has never gone home for 19 years. She was defiled by her father. There was a kangaroo court. They decided what she needed to do, and she disappeared from home. That is somebody who has lost her kinsmanship. She has missed funerals. She has missed weddings. She has missed so much that she would have wanted to enjoy. She has been converted to the criminal. And the defiler is being put back as the hero. He enjoys all this social gathering without shame. Because the only thing that was removed from his positioning is a girl. She's the one who is chased away. You know, you can stay there. You don't want it to bring the shame. You don't want it to speak about the bad things, because maybe you are the one even who entered to his bathroom naked. You know, she's being blamed and she's kept away years and years. She can't take her own grandchildren to see her grandfather. And the children start asking, why, their grandfather, the children start asking, why can't you go see Guka? She doesn't know how to explain that this Guka is the father of you. It's so difficult. And the difficult issue about incest is that we also don't know how to deal with it. And that's why we welcome people like Dr. Ria. When you see you having to sit with these girls, especially the ones that have been violated, they have incest, they don't even know what to do with the baby. So on one side, we stand and say, which is okay, we are protecting life, isn't it? Now on the other side, the child has this child pregnancy, a pregnancy that is reminding them. I saw on Tuko one of the women saying that every time I look at this boy, I see the face of my grandfather who defiled me. And I hate him so much. Look at why we have taken the hate to an innocent boy whose mother now has transferred the anger of the act to the child. So who are we creating in a child? Unloved, isn't it? Rejected. He just sees the mother behaving funny. Anytime he makes a small mistake, the mother picks something hard, hits him. He's just taking in things that don't belong to him. But because the mother has nowhere else to take the anger, she's taking the anger to this boy. And that is why this movement can only be done for people and by people with a passion. And I like the call Dr. Kagia is making for all of us. Let's join this movement from the heart, not just from, the perception that it's something to be done. It has to be something to be done from inside us, no matter how many distractions we get. Because we get distractions. When we started this issue of layered challenges of teenage pregnancy, and I told Musundi and the team, you have to leave Naivasha hotels. You have to put the tent on the ground. You don't become a popular leader for that, because you are removing something people are used to doing. If you say, let's go to Mashinani, we sit on the tent, we sit on the ground, that's not what everybody has been doing. And we have to agree to go to those uncomfortable places where As a religious leader, you have to say that, well, I preached about going to heaven, which is good, but you can't go to heaven if you don't address this issue. And if only, like Professor Wangari Maathai, you pick up that one issue, are the only issue you must speak about every single platform you have, like you have been requested to do, I know we can do it together. We can save the children, and we can really not be bystanders anymore. I don't expect the faith communities to be bystanders. When we see data, we must ask who is behind this data. If you see those people in this room, I know unfortunately we are not able to bring some of them. If you meet those girls, it is heartbreaking. It is indescribable. You actually do not know what to say. Most often, I don't know, especially the ones who are defiled, and then we diagnose them with HIV, and then we give them the tablets, and then we are telling them, you are going to start taking these drugs every day of your life. And then, in addition to that, we also tell them, you also need to prevent this other child who is in your belly from being infected with this virus. This is a child we are talking to. The trauma goes back to the service provider. Because what are you talking to a child? You're telling her how many diagnoses? Her sexual encounter was one thing, shocking. Secondly, you're telling her now there's something growing inside you. And this growing inside you, there's also a virus that has come in. And then plus the virus, I also need you to prevent another one from getting to another child that you're carrying. And then we start talking to this child about breastfeeding and exclusive breastfeeding and how she has to bring the child back to the clinic. Remember, we are speaking to a 10-year-old and the caregiver who is also heartbroken, and you are there trying to tell them medical, the science, yeah? How do we prevent? And then, unlucky for us, we don't get to know about these pregnancies early enough, especially if they are younger age. They are brought to us too late. Too late to prevent the mother transmitting HIV to the child. Too late. And therefore now, we end up now with 2 cases from that one incident. And so, join us. It's not just about that HIV, it's about the society, the breaking of social fabric, and all things that goes together. But then our own platforms are free God-given gift of the ability to open our mouth and speak. Speak out. Break the silence. That is my message for you today. Please go from here, just like Dr. has said, and be the messenger that we are going to stop, and a society will come out of all these people in this room that is not condoning, that is not accepting for the violations to continue becoming a silent epidemic within our country. Thank you very much.